The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are an urgent call to action for all countries to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure all people enjoy peace and prosperity. Goal 17, the last of the goals, is focused on partnerships, acknowledging that to address these complex challenges, we must bring together skills and resources from a range of sectors and disciplines. I'm pleased to explore the Sustainable Development Goal 17, Partnerships for the Goals, with two Griffith experts who have experience in connecting and engaging with a range of partners to ensure the best outcomes for teaching and research. Today I'm joined by Professor Anne Bonner, Head of Griffith School of Nursing and Midwifery, and Associate Professor Stephanie Schleimer, Director of the Griffith MBA. Anne, would you like to start off by giving us a bit of an overview about what SDG 17 says?
Well, that goal, Carolyn, is really about partnerships, and it's about mutually respectful partnerships. And it's across all sectors, and it's at local, national and international levels. And I guess from my perspective, it's really about what each of the partners bring to the situation and what they can learn from each other. It's not one being dominant over the other.
And Steph, it comes last. What should we read into that? How do we understand the structure of the SDGs?
Yes, I think being last means you must be incredibly important. So there's lots of different structural ways that people have made meaningful sense of all 17 SDGs by themselves and in relation with one another. But the first 15 SDGs are really all about the what are the core problems in the world and the biggest challenges, and what are the types of solutions we need nationally and globally. Number 16 is all about how should institutions look and what should the environments be like in order for us to have these wonderful and like Anne said, these really new transformative partnerships. Number 17 is special because number 17 in so many ways shows us how to do it. It shows us how to implement these big solutions to these global size problems.
Steffi, you work in a business school. There's a lot in this SDG about things that perhaps people who think about human rights and sustainability don't always think about. There's tax, there's trade, there's a role for business. Sometimes people might think of businesses as not having the potential to be a force for good with the SDGs, but you think otherwise, don't you?
Yes, most definitely, and I think it is because these type of partnerships are just so different to anything that the business world has ever seen. It is really just about overcoming that red ocean competitive thinking, and we hate to say it, but misery loves company. The world's biggest problems need company to help with misery in the world, and business is going to play a key part in it. But if you think about all of the stakeholders involved, there's government, there's civil society, there need to be financial institutions, there need to be philanthropists and donors, the education sector, so business is a core part. Not the most important, because equally I think every partner will contribute in meaningful, respectful and different ways to it, but business will play a key role in this as well.
Thank you. And the health perspective here, health always has to be trying to achieve things in partnerships. Can you talk us through some partnerships that you think are particularly important?
Look, I think partnerships are crucial to get those other sustainable goals achieved, particularly those, many of them interact directly with health, water security, food security, health and well-being, are all connected with health. And I guess the partnerships that have been successful have been at the local level, but also at the global level. For example, say the International Council of Nurses actually partners with the UN and the WHO on all of these goals. And so Goal 17 is a living example of that global partnership in action. And it's, really been very important around health promotion, disease prevention, and during COVID, well, that's obviously a major factor that's been involved in global partnerships.
And when you were describing SDG 17 at the start, you made the really important point that it's not just a local or domestic issue, it's about respectful relationships between developed and developing countries, or the global north and global south. It always sounds a bit strange in Australia to be talking about that because we don't quite fit that paradigm. How do we try and make sure that those relationships are respectful and are not just one cultural country coming in and imposing its way of doing things on others?
I think it's the attitude of the partners and how they go into the relationship around the activity or the goal that they're trying to achieve. And I think it's about training, say, some of the partners to know how to act in that situation so that, you know, the respect does occur and that there isn't that dominance by one partner and saying, well, I know your answer, let me show you the way, and here you go away and do it. Because the partners have their contextual needs and it's that bringing together. And I guess one of the projects that I've been previously involved in was in Vietnam, and it was needing to be far more mutually respectful because the context is so different between different countries. And yes, we each learn and gain from that relationship.
And that's really important part of it, isn't it? It isn't just one group coming in to do good to the other group. It's two groups working together. And that can happen domestically too. I mean, I think about our health group and relationships with First Peoples here in Australia. How do we try and make sure that when we partner with those communities, we do so in a way that's not colonial or paternalistic?
Well, I think there is a lot of training. I mentioned training already, but certainly cultural safety training is paramount. And engaging with elders in the local communities in a respectful way. And this is what I have found our First Nations people really want to be involved in a collaborative way and not that colonial white-centric view of the world. And great things do occur. They take a while to develop these partnerships, and that's important too, is that partnerships are not sudden. It's like developing any relationship. There's rapport and trust to be developed.
And they can't be fly-by-night
That's right.
if they're going to make real change.
That's right.
Steffi, universities are part of this. We've just been talking about that in the context of First Peoples, which is really important. What are some examples that you've seen, maybe here at Griffith? We obviously take partnerships really importantly, where partnerships have been able to play a really big role in helping towards the content SDGs, as you suggest.
And I think it's a lot of referring to what Anne just spoke about these respectful partnerships and being so careful about treating one another in these partnerships as well. And we find often that so a for-profit organisation, a business, for-profit business joining these partnerships may have very different reasons as to why they join compared to, say, a charity whose sole purpose exists to alleviate the cause that they're so passionately fighting for, and a business might do it more for reputational reasons. So that I totally, utterly agree that this respect is one of the very key aspects. We are, I think, in general, at the education system around the globe, we are very blessed. We exist to create knowledge, we exist to distribute knowledge, and we are very good at governing those kind of partnerships because compared to other partners, we are relatively neutral. We're very transparent. We live up to high ethical standards, so we make a very good partner in general in any local or global partnership. So here in Australia, we have some wonderful partnerships with other regions as well. So we have, for instance, a program here with the International Water Institute called the WASH at Work program. It's mainly for tourist destinations around Indonesia and Fiji, and it's all about education, about water, hygiene and sanity. But at the same time, it's this really big stakeholder relationship where all these different parties, local governments, hotel chains, tourism associations, community organizations, and lots of really wonderful not-for-profits are working for this greater cause of this clean water access and hygiene and sanitation access for everybody, because especially in those regions there is a disproportionate inequality for women and children, for people with disabilities. So there's lots of wonderful examples of these partnerships where we play that key role, that guiding role, the recommendation role as a university because of who we are.
I sometimes think of it as university can play a convening role. We're not direct competitors with businesses. We're not trying to take over the role of not-for-profits. So it's not just the knowledge, but we have, as you say, a certain neutrality that allows us to bring other folk together.
Yes, and a beautiful privilege as well. As universities, for the diverseness that we are around the globe, what brings us all together is this joy and this wonderful privilege that we have to educate and to create knowledge for research and to distribute this knowledge. And I often feel that being part of those partnerships, so for researchers around the world, publishing in articles, in magazines and policy papers and textbooks, that's a wonderful fulfillment and it's a great distribution of knowledge. But to really use that knowledge in these partnerships, that's really the purpose of creating impact in the world. And moving forward, I believe the most purposeful research and the contribution that we can give is this impact for us. That's why we exist as educational institutions.
Yes, and I think it's about, as you're describing, the capacity building of others in that safe way. Through any endeavour, whether it is directly in education or it's research around an activity, but it's capacity building and learning, that mutual learning from each other. Because while we might be supporting others to undertake research or education or to learn from these sorts of things, we in turn must be open and take this back into what we're doing as well, and not seeing it from our Western perspective only. It enriches us as much as it does the others in the partnership. And certainly I agree with you in terms of water and food and clean air. That's fundamental to life, and that's all about health. And that's, to me, is where the Goal 17 draws together those other goals.
As we've been having these discussions about the various SDGs, one of the things that keeps coming up in all of them is that you can't just pluck one out and say, we'll just work on that one, because they're all interconnected.
They are. Absolutely, they are.
And interdisciplinarity, therefore, we've got to partner inside our institution too.
Across institutions as well. Yeah, because most of these problems are just so large and so multi-layered.
That's right.
And last well beyond our generation and our children's generation. So it really needs a very different approach within universities and across universities, and really understand how we each can contribute in our own special and privileged ways that we have for our profession.
I do think that's where we can learn from that. I think perhaps our interdisciplinarity could be far greater than it already is, and I think that's an opportunity for us across the university sectors. We do still operate in these silos, and we don't have that cross-partnership internally, which strengthens the capacity to go externally.
Yeah. Or let's be fair, we don't always. So I think we're starting to see some of those things develop. I think you've seen some good examples, haven't you, Steffi, of where interdisciplinary expertise has come together with external partners to do great things.
It is literally every single one of these SDG-related partnerships required a multi-stakeholder and a multidisciplinary approach. No matter if within a university, across universities, across different levels of partners. And a great example is in the Pacific Islands, our Eco-Adapt project that has come out of the Climate Action Beacon, and it requires experts from microeconomists to coastal engineers to marine biologists to planners to social scientists to really study the aspects of how can a community really sustainably live in a close relationship with its natural environment. And it requires so many different angles to really understand and figure out how they can adapt from a social science point of view, how can they consume from the ocean, so from a marine biology point of view, without even worsely affecting the biodiversity. We have coastal planners involved because of the water toxicity, so because of climate change. So there's so many different aspects to it that once again link an SDG like climate change to at least 7 others in this particular project.
But it's exciting, isn't it? We have opportunities to teach, we have opportunities to learn, and we have opportunities to make a real impact on the world if we get outside our own little boxes, whether they be our own disciplines or our own institutions, and work with others. So Steffi and Anne, thank you so much for your time today.